I woke up to a yellow wall, where my gate should be a Hummer, parked sideways across my only road. Like a trophy. Somebody won for bad decisions. Engine humming. Windows blacked out a paper under plastic on the windshield that said, "Community Blockade." Like a newsletter had become a badge of authority. By sundown, that Hummer was going to move. I didn't know yet if it would roll away or roll down, but one way or another, the road would breathe again. If you've ever had a stranger point a clipboard at your life and call it theirs, you know the kind of heat that sits behind your ribs and waits for the right hour to speak. My name is Luke Barrett, and Red Mesa has been in my family long enough that the fences feel like uncles, the windmill like an old friend. The road is just gravel and ruts. It freezes in winter and turns to powder in July. But it is the artery of the place you block that you pinch the pulse. Most mornings, I sip coffee on the porch and listen to the wind slide through the pines this morning. I listened to an expensive SUV idle like it owned the dirt. And I felt that quiet click inside that says, take notes first. Swing second. You know what I mean, she moved in last year. Cheryl Monroe, new floral scarf every week. Same tight smile. President of the Ponderosa Ridge HOA across the county lane. She arrived with laminated rules that smelled like perfume and certainty knocked at 6 a.m. and handed me a $500 dust pollution fine, like sunrise was a crime. I said, "Ma'am, out here we call that morning." She didn't laugh. Then came the ruler at my fence, her foot on a folding stool, measuring posts like she was grading soldiers, her phone whispering documentation, while my dog tilted his head, like he couldn't quite believe the scene. She called the sheriff once to report a cow staring aggressively at joggers, and Sheriff Tom Riker had to bite the inside of his cheek to keep a straight face. I stayed polite, which isn't the same as staying soft. I saved every letter, labeled each file on my kitchen laptop, set a camera on the barn roof, another on the gate post, a third tucked in the fence rail, because truth without proof becomes a rumor, and rumors have a way of finding microphones. When she announced a community discussion on property cooperation at the Lake Rec Hall, I put on a clean flannel, sat near the exit, and listened. The lights flickered. The chairs wobbled. Cheryl's projector beamed, restoring order like a sermon title, and she pointed a laser at a photo of my tractor visual pollution, she said. And somebody in back coughed a laugh he tried to hide. She used a phrase that stuck under my tongue like a pebble. Adjacent rural access points, which is HOA for things that aren't theirs, but they'd sure like to boss around. I unfolded the county map, set my deed beside it, told her plain the road and gate are deeded private access. 3 generations in black ink. She smiled the way a person smiles when they think the room belongs to them, and said, "Boundaries are open to interpretation." Old Pete Holliday said, "Not when they're drawn in ink." Sheriff Riker lifted his brows like a man saying, "Let's all love the truth today." The meeting didn't fix a thing. It just taught me the volume would go up. Letters got thicker pages, fatter with phrases that sounded like they were built from copy and paste. Twice, she stood at my fence with 2 HOA men in matching polos and read regulation strings that didn't apply this side of the county line. I poured them water filmed. The scene kept my voice steady, because steadiness is louder than shouting if you hold it long enough. Then the nights got curious. Headlights paused at the bottom of the road, gone by. The time my boots hit the porch. Fresh tire tracks near the gate the next morning, like someone had practiced stopping exactly where the hinge meets the post. Scratches on the latch, small, but honest. At 12:08 a.m., a camera caught Cheryl in a reflective vest, like she was official taping a slick plastic sheet to my sign that read, "Shared passage rights. Remove obstruction." I printed the frame, slid it into a folder called Night Stunts, and handed the stack to the sheriff later that day. He whistled low. Told me I was doing it right. Keep it clean. Call him first. When she stepped so far over the line she couldn't pretend she hadn't. That promise turned into a phone call the morning the Hummer appeared like a school bus built for vanity. I walked down the gravel with coffee in one hand and my phone in the other, filmed every angle, because memory is kind and cameras are exact. The drone buzzed overhead, her little hornet for the HOA newsletter, and under the plastic on the windshield was a sign with the confidence of a person who mistakes a paragraph for law temporary community blockade. Property violation, under review. The sheriff rolled up with dust curling behind his cruiser, took one long look he had like a coach who's seen this game twice already, and said she gets 10 minutes. Cheryl came fast. Hat, brave, sunglasses the size of a TV screen clipboard, held like a sword. "This road is under association review," she announced, and I leaned on my gate and said, "This road is under ownership by me." She said I'd be liable if I moved her vehicle. The sheriff raised a hand and told her she was trespassing and obstructing deeded access 10 minutes, and then the Hummer leaves one way or another. She did not move it. She set up a folding chair like she was staking a claim and narrated into her phone. 2 HOA board men arrived in polos. Neighbors parked up on the ridge and watched from tailgates with the quiet of a crowd that knows a lesson is about to land. Around 3, I carried a cold bottle of water out of simple decency. She called it bribery and filmed my fingers on the cap like the law was hiding under it. I told her the same thing I told her at dawn, move it by sundown. While the sun burned its way down the sky, I checked the tractor. Hydraulics tight tow chain, coiled like a sleeping snake angles, and leverage mapped in my head. It wasn't destruction I was planning. It was education, and education is best delivered with evidence and patience. "Mason." My ranch hand asked if we were moving it now. I said, "Not yet, and still give her the chance to do the right thing." "Timing matters," he said, and I nodded because some lessons need an audience and a clock. Gold light pooled in the low grass. 5:30, the ridge fell quiet like a theater before the curtain. Cheryl stood and lifted her chin and told the camera they wouldn't be intimidated by rural bullying, and I stepped into the road with the chain on my shoulder and my jaw set. "You can't touch that," one polo guy barked, and I told him I was moving my obstruction off my road. Cheryl planted herself in front of the bumper, called it illegal, looked to the sheriff for rescue, and he didn't blink. "Ma'am, move," he said. I started the tractor. The engine came up like a baritone, steady, and low dust rose in a halo. Neighbors leaned forward without meaning to. I hooked the chain to the rear axle the way any farm kid would, checked the slack. Twice climbed back in. Set the gear. Breathed out slow. "You'll regret this," she shouted. And I said, "Not as much as you regret parking on private land." When the chain went tight, it made the sound a line makes when you finally draw it. The Hummer shivered and dug into the gravel like a wrestler gritting his teeth, then slid an inch, then another, and then gravity remembered its job. The rear dropped, the front rolled, and the whole thing pivoted into the ditch with the weird grace of something that thought it was untouchable until the ground told it different. One headlight blinked at the sky, the other glowed weak in the weeds. The engine coughed and quit at the dust, hung in the last light like chalk. Somebody on the ridge whispered, "Ho!" the way people do when they see a clean truth happen right in front of them. I cut the engine, and the quiet felt like a chapel. I unhooked the chain coil by coil, laid it on the gravel, had roads clear, and didn't smile, because this wasn't about winning. It was about balance. The sheriff stepped forward, eyes on the open lane, voice steady as a ruler. Mr. Barrett documented, warned and removed an obstruction to deeded access. Ms. Monroe, you trespassed and ignored lawful warnings. She tried the word felony on for size, like it might fit. Said I'd assaulted her vehicle, and the sheriff shook his head. What happened is a civil consequence of your action. Yeah, that happened. I felt my hands steady, not shaking like they used to, when I mistook adrenaline for justice. Cheryl pointed at me and said, I'd regret humiliating her. I looked at the sun laying down in the grass and told her maybe, but not tonight. The tow truck's lights came over the ridge. Neighbors put their tailgates up. A kid asked his dad if tractors could move anything, and the dad said anything that needs moving. Mason stood by the porch with that grin men wear when the world briefly makes sense. I coiled the chain, carried it back slow, and let the words I'd been saving land in the dust between us. You parked it there, Ms. Monroe. The land just parked it back. Now here's where I hand it to you. Was moving that Hummer a step too far or exactly far enough? If a sign says community, but the tires sit on a deed with my name, what's righteous and what's just loud? Drop your take in the comments. Tell me your city and what time you're watching. Share the moment someone tried to manage your life with a clipboard and how you pushed back. If you think boundaries are about respect, not power, hit subscribe so more folks hear this and weigh in. Would you have done it different? I'll read every word after I feed the cattle.